I ranked the 2023 Florida schedule as the toughest schedule in all of college football, and this 2024 schedule might be even tougher. We're going to break it all down for you here in this video. Before we get to 2024, let's look back at 2023. And here is this 2023 schedule for Florida. Again, this was the schedule that we ranked as the toughest schedule in college football. There were other schedule rankings I saw out there that did not have Florida as number one as far as the number one toughest schedule. But my rankings, the formula that I used to rank the schedules, they did have the toughest schedule. And it did prove to be a very tough one. And, I think Florida was better than a lot of 6-6 teams last year, but their schedule was just really tough. And that's why they didn't make it to a bowl game, which is why I predicted them to go 5-7 in the preseason. As you take a look at the schedule, again, they had to play Utah and Florida State in the non-conference, but their non-conference schedule this year might be even tougher. Yes, it is a tough schedule. You look at who they played out of the SEC West. They had to play Arkansas and LSU, which turned out to not be as tough as we thought. LSU was not quite as good as I thought they were going to be. Arkansas was a lot worse than I thought they were going to be. And Tennessee was not as good as I thought they were going to be. Missouri was better than I thought they would be. So the schedule, it turned out, I think, to not be quite as tough as we thought in the preseason, but still was a really tough schedule and a big reason why they went 5-7. So here's the 2024 schedule. And before we go game by game, let's break it down. We'll start with the non-conference. They'll play Miami, Samford, UCF, and Florida State. They'll play Florida State on the road. It's hard to say right now how tough this non-conference schedule really is, but we expect Miami to be pretty good. We expect UCF to be pretty good, and we expect Florida State to be really good. And so you've got three tough games there. Samford is really the only gimme on their schedule. They don't even get to play Vanderbilt this year, so it's a really tough schedule. But the non-conference schedule here, again, it looks like it's going to be tough. It's hard to say just how tough. I mean, is this going to be a brutal non-conference schedule against three top 25 teams? That's possible. Or perhaps Miami struggles again. UCF isn't great. Florida State's not as good as they were last year. And maybe it's not too bad, but it's definitely a respectable non-conference schedule. No doubt about that. You look at their home schedule, Miami, Samford, and UCF, non-conference games all at home. And then they get Texas A&M, Kentucky, LSU, and Ole Miss. Nice to not have to go on the road to play LSU. Of course, that's a tough place to play. Same thing with Texas A&M. Kentucky and Ole Miss, those might be winnable games. Texas A&M as well. So you've got some games at home that you can possibly win. And, I'm not going to say, out of these games right here, these 7 games, I'm not going to say there's no chance that Florida wins 6 of them. They could, they have a great home field advantage. They go 6-1 in these games, and they can get to a bowl game. Also, good news is the Georgia game, which is a neutral site game, of course. That is counted as a road game for them this year, which means they get 4 home games, 3 road games in the SEC, and then a neutral site game. So that works out. So it's not all bad for Florida. The schedule is really tough, but it's not all bad. You look at their road schedule, and I put Georgia in here as on the away side because it's not at home, even though it's a neutral site. But you got Florida State in the non-conference, of course. And then Mississippi State, tough place to play, but I don't know how good the Bulldogs are going to be. Tennessee, they beat them last year. You got Texas. That's going to be a really tough one. And then, like I said, Georgia. So let's look at the schedule. They start with Miami. That'll be the season opener there on August 31st. Then they get Samford on September the 7th. And again, that is their only gimme game. You look at the rest of this schedule. Do you see a game on this schedule where you'd say Florida has a 90% chance of winning other than Samford? I don't think so. I don't even know if you can say they have another game where they have a 75% chance of winning. I mean, it's tough. There are no breaks on the schedule outside of that Samford game. So they'll play Texas A&M. They'll open up the SEC play there on September the 14th at home. That's the good news. First 3 games all at home. Again, it's not all bad. Mississippi State on the road on September the 21st, first road game of the season. But again, a game where they're going to have a shot. I think that's close to a 50-50 game. You've got UCF on October the 5th. I don't know how good they're going to be, but that's a winnable game at home coming off of a bye week. So again, the start to the schedule, if you look at the first 5 games, not too bad. Now you look at the last 5 games and oh, wow. We'll get to those in a second. But after UCF, they'll play Tennessee on the road October the 12th. That'll be a tough one. That'll be a tough one playing them on the road. Then they get Kentucky at home on October the 19th. And so they'll go to their second bye week there before playing Georgia. And again, all teams will get 2 bye weeks this year. And the first 7 games, it's not horrible. That is not a horrible schedule. They might have to win 6 of them, though, to get to a bowl game because their final 5 games are that tough, which is kind of how it was this year. They lost a bunch of games there at the end. But, yeah, first 7 games, tough. No easy wins in there other than Samford, but a lot of games where they're at least going to have a shot. And several games at home, Kentucky, UCF, Texas A&M, Miami, and then again that Samford game. So 5 games at home. If you go 5-2 in those games, I don't know if they can win another one because the rest of the schedule, again, is that tough. We start with Georgia there on November the 2nd in Jacksonville. We know how good Georgia is expected to be. They're always, they are a premier program now in college football. Texas is going to be really, really tough. This is potentially a top 5 team this year. LSU is going to be tough. Get them at home. That's the good news, but still, that's going to be a tough game. Ole Miss is going to be tough. They've got a lot coming back. And then they close things out with Florida State in the rivalry game on November 30th. So I'm not going to say they have no chance to win a game in those final 5. Maybe they win against LSU or Ole Miss at home, find a win in there somewhere. And 5-2 in the first 7 games would get them to a bowl game. But I think really, seriously, they might need to go 6-1 in those first 7 games because that stretch at the end, I haven't compared all the stretches in college football, but I would say that has to be the toughest 5-game stretch for any team. We're talking about Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. All of these teams, I believe, ranked in the top 13 this year, and none of them expected to drop off a ton next year. So overall, a tough schedule, not as bad as you might think when you just look at the teams, but that stretch at the end, again, that has to be the most brutal stretch in all of college football. Tough schedule for Florida once again in 2024.